Every month, we're bombarded with wonderful news about the economy, about jobs, about housing, and how everything is better. And yet, economic growth means nothing to regular people. If you're Johnny Sixpack who punches a clock at a Kroger's and you think that you're going to get ahead, you know that those numbers don't mean anything. Record low unemployment just means that they've skewed the statistics to make it look like everything's okay. Just like going on Indeed and applying for a job that you've seen reposted every 10 days for years, which is my current job. When they were looking to fill this position, they couldn't find a desperate enough person. So they would hire someone, they'd realize that that person was there just to collect a paycheck. And if there's one thing that corporations hate about people, is people who show up just to collect a paycheck. In fact, today I was reading an article where the hiring manager was offended when they asked this question of the person that they were interviewing. So they asked them point blank, and it's a question I've gotten in nearly every single job interview I've ever had in my entire life. Why do you want to work here? And the person responded in the most honest and straightforward way that you can imagine. I need money. And the hiring manager was so blown away by that answer that they wrote this article because they don't want people who need money working. For some reason, you're supposed to say anything else but I need money in a job interview. As if working this dead end job is somehow going to uh, catapult your career into overdrive. We all know what regular jobs are. They're not places that have our best interest in mind. They want to offer us as little as humanly possible, and as soon as we become a liability or we're just not working hard enough, suddenly we find ourselves unemployed. Stability in the workplace used to mean something. In fact, when I was talking to this nursing girl this morning, she told me that the company she works for forces them every paycheck to put 15% of your paycheck into a pension. And she said it wasn't something you could negotiate. They automatically forced you to save for retirement, which in a sense is good, but for a person that needs a new car, it's not so good because, as she said, I can't touch that money in any way. And I thought, oh my God, what kind of job would force you to save for retirement? But pensions aren't a thing anymore. Apparently, from what I've heard, and I don't know anything about this stuff because I've never made enough money to put money into a 401k. So the 401k replaced the pension as something that can move around with you because let's face it, no one stays at a regular job for very long. Everyone is either getting fired or they have to quit their job and find a new one because your job doesn't want to pay you a living wage. So, in order to give yourself a raise, you've got to change jobs every year to 2 years. Anyone who stays any longer than that will not see a pay increase because, let's face it, they're looking for the desperation worker. They're not looking for Susie Homemaker, they're looking for Susie Rottencrotch, who's just there to collect a paycheck. And it really offends people when you're honest in job interviews for why you're there. I mean, I've never been to a job that I actually wanted. We go to these things, these so called jobs, because we have to. We need money. And it's not enough to survive. A lot of people want to thrive. And you know what thriving means to me? It means not having to worry about money while working a 40 or less work week. 40 on paper and, 10 to 15 actual hours of work. That to me is thriving in an economy that just doesn't care about people. So, I was going to write this video from the perspective of talking points. But the story that was generated by ChatGPT speaks more to the regular person. So instead of having cold talking points, I just ripped my um, what I wanted to talk about straight out of the story because it's more compelling this way. I've noticed that the stories are much more fun than the talking points because the talking points are often cold, meaningless, and extremely repetitive. Wage stagnation. If I hear wage stagnation one more time from ChatGPT, I am going to rip my hair out as to what little hair I have left. But I just can't take that anymore. So I have one, two, three, and then a toxic positivity. And so when ChatGPT writes these stories for me, it always has an opening scene, right? And every time that I ask it to write from the perspective of a very poor woman, this is usually the scenery that you get. Opening scene: a dimly lit kitchen. A woman is sitting at a wobbly table, counting coins in a jar. The faucet drips in the background. You can almost feel the poverty in the room. She looks straight into the camera and says, "What are you looking at?" Just kidding, doesn't say that. But that's the scene. And when I've written these, or when I've had these stories written from the opposite perspective, because I like writing these things from poor and rich. If I were to ask ChatGPT right now to write the story from the perspective of a very wealthy woman, which I can do in real time right now if you guys give me just 1 second from just change one word here: wealthy. Let's see what it comes up with. So, generate. All right, here it goes. All right, opening scene for the exact same story, for the exact same script. Here we go. Opening scene: an elegant, minimalist living room with a wealthy woman sitting at a designer armchair, sipping tea from fine china. She looks directly into the camera, her tone both captivating and slightly, I don't even know what that word is. I'm not even going to try to pronounce. See what I mean? It knows who your target audience is. Usually, it's large doors that open to an outdoor view of the ocean with very expensive furniture in the room. But when you write stories from the perspective of the average person living in a studio apartment with 3 kids as a single mom, it doesn't give you that scenery. So let's see what it said in our first paragraph here. They say the economy is booming, stocks are up, the numbers look good, and they promise it will trickle down to people like me. But let me show you what the economy growth really means. This is something that it pitched to me in the talking points on this story. Those trickle down economics that we all know have failed. Telling poor people that someday they're going to get theirs is very much so like having a person living above you who has a little hole in their ceiling, and every few hours they pour their best warm, yellow, salty tea through that hole, and you look up at trickle down economics coming down at you, and you stick your tongue out into the air and you lick the air, right? It looks like my neighbor had asparagus again. That's what trickle down economics is to the proles. It's not believable. It will never happen. And profits will always stay where they belong, with the wealthy class. Telling poor people that they have to keep waiting is like telling people that Jesus is coming. I heard it my entire childhood from my mother. "Oh, it's only a matter of time. I think I see him on the horizon. He'll fix things." And I was like, even as a child, I was like, where is this blind faith in a system that's been broken since the dawn of time? No one's coming to help you. Jesus isn't going to show up and kick the money lenders out of the temple. It doesn't happen. They're there, they're set up shop, and they have no interest in leaving so that poor people can get ahead. That's not what business is about. So, moving on to talking point number two. And here we have this woman say this: when they celebrate the economy, they aren't talking about me. They're talking about corporations making millions, while I skip meals to make sure my kids eat. This is something I've heard throughout my entire adult life, especially with single moms. Because once you have three, four, five, six little bundles of joy, they really eat into your paycheck. And believe me, Johnny Sixpack wasn't interested in paying child support while he was doing the bump and dump. Susie Rottencrotch knew what she was getting into when she decided to have her midnight rendezvous with Johnny Sixpack, who smelled of other women and maybe even alcohol and other substances. Susie Rottencrotch wasn't going to become Susie Homemaker just because she got some behind the Taco Bell. I know, my mom is Susie Rottencrotch. Five children with five different baby daddies, and nothing was going to stop her from having her fun. I don't know what pumps women into this, but Johnny Sixpack is always full of love. And he doesn't mind sharing his love with you as long as you realize that you're going to be raising that child alone. And this is why I never got to meet my dad, because Susie Rottencrotch probably didn't even know who the culprit was with the hottest seat in town. She just knew that she wanted to do something that made her feel good. She's poor, she's not very attractive, and when it comes down to the end of the day, she wanted to feel good. I'm not sure why Susie Rottencrotch is the way that she is, but she's not called Rottencrotch because she's a woman. She's a classy woman. I mean, I'm not going to say that classy women don't get around. I'm just saying that when Susie is behind the Taco Bell and she smells Johnny Sixpack getting closer, the first thing that happens is pants drop between the legs and she assumes the position, almost like a cat reflex. Boom. Cheeks up, head down, music starts playing, and 30 seconds later, she's with child. All right. So, moving on. So, the transition here in the scene in the background is supposed to be this: the woman opens an empty fridge. A carton of eggs and a jug of water sit alone on the shelf. Holy crap, ChatGPT must be spying on me because that's all that's in my fridge. I may not even have the carton of eggs because eggs have gotten more expensive and I'm not buying them. I don't buy eggs, I don't buy milk, and I don't buy butter because it's too expensive. The basics. That's it. You just need bread and water to keep you alive. That's where we've come to America. We have come to the point where there's bread on top of my fridge, there's a jug of tap water inside the fridge, and this is what we call surviving in an economy that's hostile towards anyone who's not wealthy now. So let's move on to our next talking scene here. The Dow is breaking records, great, but tell me, how does that help the single mom working two jobs and still getting eviction notices? The truth is, it doesn't. Economic growth, it's not for us, it's for them. You know who them is, right? People that don't understand how much eggs cost or milk costs. The people are so far removed from day to day problems that they look at someone that is not able to take advantage of the booming economy as some sort of eyeless creature, some sort of blob, the thing that cleans your house and mows your lawn and paints your nails. This isn't a person like them. Because if you're not rich, you're not visible. The invisible, unwashed masses are out there, struggling like you wouldn't believe in order to make ends meet in an economy that's hell bent on destroying them. And this is a comment that someone said earlier today. It's like, well, if this economy is so bad, why are there still poor people? Shouldn't it have destroyed them by now? The economy destroys poor people slowly. It eats away at your resources. You have no savings account of any kind. If you're like the nurse, you're driving around in a car, and literally she told me this today. She's driving around in a car right now that she doesn't know if it's going to start the next time. Once the mechanic tells you your car has less than a month to live, your Promobile is no longer transportation. It's a liability. And if you, she's had this car for over 10 years. I didn't think she looked that old. I would have guessed her age at closer to 25. So she went through the entire college years and still was not able to get a car. What does that tell me right away? She doesn't come from privilege. I would never let my daughter drive around in a car like that. That wasn't safe. But if your parents don't have money, if your parents can't buy you your starter home, co-sign your car loan, or make certain that if something were to happen to you that they would be able to pay your rent for an extended period of time. No, most people like this, when things go bad, they go bad quickly. When you are living among people who are just one paycheck away from complete and total financial disaster, you have a problem. And these people are hanging on. These people are working two jobs. These people are involved in gig work. They're doing everything they can. It wouldn't surprise me if this single mom was selling feet pictures. In fact, I got asked that question today. I thought it'd be funny to show you guys how to clean the floor in the kitchen with just wipes. But of course, I get a comment asking how much. And I was like, every girl that I've met in the past year has some sort of account to sell her feet pictures. I didn't know that it would come to that for me. You're becoming an economy where people are going to start bartering for for sugar and butter with pictures of their feet. Now that's an economy that I'd love to be a part of. It's hilarious how far things have gone downhill when people are making a living by having only pages out there or getting onto Twitch or e-begging for donations. This is a society that we've created and are celebrating. That's what gets me. It's like kids don't want to grow up and be dentists or lawyers or be a pillar of the community. Most girls are going to grow up and go and make money, especially if they're very attractive. They're going to go onto an onlys page. They're going to sit there and wait for the Sims to show up, and they're going to sell feet pictures. That should be, if I was opening up a trade school, being an influencer would be one of the trades that I would be selling um, training to. Because taking pictures of your feet isn't just something you do with your iPhone. This has got to be something that looks professional. Because remember, all of us are in direct competition with each other. And if there's so much competition for the same amount of money from the same people that are going to give you money for your feet pictures, then you've got to stand out among the feet pictures. And let's put it this way, guys, if you don't have attractive feet, you've already lost in the feet economy because no one's going to buy your ugly feet. But if you happen to have other redeeming qualities, you might be able to do something else because what else is there? You look at the jobs that are available, there's no money. The only work that's viable out there now is doing something where you're not being paid hourly, some sort of other career, something not conventional. Our conventional education system has failed because college trains people to go out into the world for traditional employment. But suddenly, the traditional job doesn't want your liberal arts college degree. And now that puts you in a bind. What else can I do for a living? And that can be selling pictures of your feet on the internet. As a society, we have completely failed. The last thing I put into toxic positivity, the same woman. See those houses? That's who they're talking about when they say the economy is booming and growing and benefiting people. Not us living over here in these rundown, roach infested apartments that we can barely afford. There are 800 units in my apartment complex. Do you think there are any winners here? No. People move into these places because they have no choice. People take bad jobs because they don't have a choice. There's a certain aspect of society that has to live in desperation in order for society to function in and of itself. You just have to find a way of exploiting it in order to get rich. Because going to your hourly job is never going to benefit you, especially if it's not something you can put on a resume and build experience. Your average run of the mill bad job right now requires 5 to 10 years of experience. And it's up to you to be able to get that experience and put it on a resume. Right now, things look bleaker than they ever have. And I welcome the foot economy because as a person who can work in that economy, it's better than what's out there right now. It's better than working inside of the Taco Bell during the day, Susie Rottencrouch, only to clock out at 8 and go behind the Taco Bell and work for the rest of the evening.